Between my father-in-law and me, we've spent almost $100,000 on finance newsletters so that you don't have to see if they're worth the ridiculous amount of money that they cost. I've spent about $10,000 myself personally, and my father-in-law's newsletter collection totals almost $90,000, and he gave me complete access to his entire collection, all $90,000 worth of newsletters to explore, check out, and review. And I'm gonna be going through each newsletter on the list, starting with the cheapest one and working my way up to the most expensive one on the list, ranking them and seeing if they're worth the money that they cost. First off, if you're not familiar with the finance newsletter world, it is wild. It's a space where companies make hundreds of millions of dollars, charging for access to high quality research and information. And some of these newsletters give you direct information on exactly what stocks to buy, when to buy them, where to buy them, what price to buy them, and what price to sell them at. Other newsletters are more like tools. They give you data, they give you analysis, they show you like what trends are trending in any given space, and then they let you use that information to pick the right things you want to invest in. And every single one of these newsletters costs a small fortune to get access to, ranging from on the low end $300 to the high end of $45,000. And we're gonna start with the cheapest newsletter and work our way up to the most expensive one. First up is Massari Research, which is the cheapest one on the list, costing just $359 for an annual membership. This one fits more into the tools category, meaning it doesn't give you direct picks on what stocks or cryptos to buy, but it gives you overall analysis on the market and different trends that are forming in the space. This one's also specific to the crypto market. This is one that I bought and that I've been using for a couple months now, and a lot of their articles are actually free. Anyone can go on the website and read them, and then they have special articles that are only for paid members. You can also create personal watch lists, get a special news feed, have access to what they call asset profiles, and they also have this special tool to track DAOs. Now, personally, I only use the research and analysis, and I actually find it really useful and insightful. They have lots of info on crypto trends and ideas, and it helps me keep up with the space and hear about ideas I might not otherwise hear about. I would say that a lot of the data and metric tools that they offer, you can actually get free on sites like DeFi Llama and other sites out there in the space, but they kind of organize it all for you and make it really easy to access. Overall, I'd say for this one being at just $300, I definitely have a high confidence that I'm going to get my money's worth from this product. Given the price and all that they offer, I'd rate Massari a 9 out of 10. Next up is Weiss Weekend Windfalls for $1,100. I bought this one because it promised I could make an extra $1,000 every single Friday trading their special options strategy. They said that they had tracked this method over a 3-year period and it had something like a 90% accuracy rate. And their pitch was basically, in Las Vegas, there is always a player that wins 24/7, 365 days a year, and that's the house. And that when you're trading options with the strategy that they're showing you, you are the house. You can't lose. You're gonna make $1,000 every Friday. And so obviously, I was pretty pumped about this. And especially being someone that had no experience with options, I was really excited to learn how to do this whole thing. After paying for the membership, I was given buy alerts on exactly what to buy and when to buy it each week. This was definitely one of those newsletters that made it super easy for someone who didn't know what they were doing. And when my first alert came in, I was really stoked. I was like, geez, it has begun. I'm gonna go make $1,000 every Friday from this week on. I can't wait. And the first thing I noticed is I spent $2,500 on my first options position, and it said I would make just $125. And this is where I first noticed a major caveat to their promise, which was, yes, technically you can make $1,000 a week, you just have to have $100,000. This felt like a massive bait and switch. Most people don't just have $100,000 laying around to invest in a brand new option strategy. Most people don't have $100,000, period. And the way that they did their marketing, saying, you know, you can make with this strategy $1,000 every Friday, made it seem, at least to me, like the average person could do this, when that wasn't at all the case. And I get it. I understand that saying you can make $1,000 a week is a great marketing, headline. But to me, it was also very misleading. So I ended up making far less than I thought I would. The strategy did end up being successful. Like, I did end up making money, and it was actually a pretty decent strategy. But again, it felt to me misleading, and that just kind of bugged me. I would say if you're wanting to learn options trading, or you're wanting to augment your own options trading strategy, this is a decent strategy and could be a good newsletter for you. But if you're wanting to make $1,000 a week like the marketing states, then this might be one you skip over. Because of how misleading I felt the marketing was, I would rate this one a 3 out of 10. Next up is Blockworks Research, which cost me $2,500. So this is one that I recently just got, and as far as I can tell, the only thing I get access to is their premium research. Maybe I'm missing something, but to me that seems to be the case. And for me, this research will probably yield a good return. Again, I'm brand new to it, so it's hard for me to fully say, but I would say overall they do provide good research, and I'm sure I will find a way to take this research and make more money than I spent. But that's considering my full-time job is investing. However, for the average person, I think this would probably end up being a waste of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, the research, again, is top-notch. They do a really good job with their research. But unless you're heavily invested in the crypto space and have some money to throw around, it's probably not going to be worth it for the average person. Especially considering at first glance, Massari seems very comparable and is significantly cheaper. That being said, if you're someone like me that heavily values research, heavily values education, then maybe it's worth it if you view it as your $2,500 tuition. Overall, I'd rate this one a 6 out of 10. And you're gonna wanna stick around because soon I'm gonna be sharing the most expensive newsletter in the entire collection. Is it worth it? How much it costs? And all the details. Next up is Weiss Crypto Investor, which costs $2,995. This is another one that gives you buy and sell signals, where it tells you what to buy, when to buy it, and when to sell it. And when I first logged into their account, I was a little bit shocked and kind of confused when I saw their portfolio of recommendations. Spoiler alert, it's literally just Bitcoin and ETH and 2 other well-known crypto projects. Now, that being said, they do have a ton of other recommendations, which you can see in their closed section, like trades that they've already closed down. And that list is actually pretty impressive. They have Cardano at a 2,925% gain, which they closed at near perfect timing right before the bear market. Thorchain, which had a 1,135% gain, which they also closed. Chainlink at a 3x, which they closed, and so on. A lot of people during this bear market learned that it's one thing to make gains and it's another thing to capture those gains. And it seems like this newsletter is good at both. So this newsletter seems to be more for like blue chip cryptos on when to buy, when to sell. If you really don't know what you're doing and you want someone to walk you through and say, here, buy this at this price, sell this at this price, they seem to do a decent job. It's not a spot for you to find like hidden gem, small cap cryptos. I personally wouldn't buy this newsletter again, but that's just because I personally get this information other places myself. But if you're somebody who's just getting into crypto and really don't know what to do, this might be a good, safe newsletter to get into, where it's gonna focus heavily on, safer, more widely accepted cryptos that put you at less risk and give you pretty solid signals on when to buy and when to sell. Overall, I'd rate this one a 6 out of 10. Next up is Tradesmith, and my father-in-law bought this one spending around $9,300 in total. This is a general trading tool for stocks, crypto, and more. The original purpose of this tool was for you to be able to make stop losses without market makers being able to see them. But it's since expanded to become a tool that allows you to choose the correct position sizes for each investment based on the volatility of each asset, as well as a suite of other tools, including a tool that analyzes social media chatter to pick the best ideas to invest into. And it's really something you need to invest time into learning how to use it if you want to get good results from it. Now, I haven't actually used this one very much at all myself, so I actually had to ask my father-in-law what his experience was with this specific product. And he said that using this tool during the bull run, he would make about 10 to 15% a month, which is obviously insane. But he said he's not sure what kind of results this tool would pull in during the bear market. He says that he thinks it could be just as profitable given they give you a lot of shorting strategies that you could use, but he really has no idea because he hasn't used the tool in over a year, so take that with a grain of salt. And I asked him why he stopped using it because obviously he paid a lot of money to get this tool, and he said it just took too much time with the strategy he was doing. It took around 8 hours a day for him to get those results, and at the time crypto was just way easier, so he stopped using this tool and just went all in on crypto. He did mention though that he does plan in the future to use this tool again. He did point out that a lot of these newsletters give you lifetime memberships that promise you access to all the newsletters and tools that they have. And what will happen is they'll later release a new newsletter that doesn't get included in that lifetime bundle that's supposed to include all the tools and all the newsletters that certain publication has. And he said for him, this has happened multiple times and it always feels like a bait and switch because it feels like you're buying access to everything this company makes lifetime, and that's why you're spending so much money because it's such a deal. But then to have them go release this new super awesome newsletter later that doesn't get included, that you now have to pay another $5,000, $10,000 to get access to, definitely doesn't make you feel good. And he rated Tradesmith a 7 out of 10 overall. Next up is Investor Place, which costs $12,000. This is another recommendation newsletter where they tell you what to buy and when to buy it. And this was one of those lifetime all-encompassing packages, meaning you're not just getting access to one newsletter, but every single newsletter that this company currently has, which is about 21 separate newsletters. And I'll admit that this one's a little bit difficult for me to rate because it's kind of a newer one that my father-in-law bought, and he said he hasn't used it a ton, and I've only used it for the crypto newsletters that they release, which with those specifically, I really like personally, although I don't always agree with the, cryptos that they pick. In general, I guess I really like their macro viewpoints and their ideas about the markets, and I find a lot of value from that research that they provide. The question is though, would I pay $12,000 to get access to all of these newsletters myself? If I was just doing crypto, no, I wouldn't. But if I take into account the other 19 newsletters, and I was somebody who just really liked to learn all the different investing strategies out there, then I would say it depends. I think if you use this info and you have some capital to throw around, you could definitely make your money back. It's certainly going to be better than just throwing a bunch of money at your favorite idea with no research whatsoever. But I would say if you have less than $50,000 to invest, with such a high price tag, it's likely not going to be worth it for you. I would rate this one a 6 out of 10. Next up, it's getting really expensive with Palm Beach Group at $15,000. And this is another one where they actually tell you exactly what to buy and when to buy it, and another one that's one of those lifetime deals that comes with a bunch of newsletters. This one includes 6 newsletters in total, and you can usually get it cheaper than that $15,000 during a promotional period. And this is a newsletter that my father-in-law has had forever. And Tika, one of their main analysts and writers, is actually the person that I first learned about crypto from. And he was a huge catalyst for me wanting to learn more about crypto and dive deeper. And I have to give some credit to this newsletter because these guys were extremely early to crypto, telling everyone to buy ETH and Bitcoin back in 2016. And even back then, Tika was calling for a $50,000 Bitcoin when everyone else thought that was just radically insane. In fact, he's been eerily accurate in almost all his predictions on the future of the crypto space from a macro perspective. He's also made some insane good calls on early crypto projects that have changed people's lives, turning $100 into sometimes $100,000. He's also had his fair share of absolutely terrible calls. Overall though, I'm sure his early subscribers are still up significantly. All that being said, lately I've felt that the quality of this newsletter has declined a bit. It feels like the more rapidly crypto evolves as a space, the harder it is for Tika to keep up. I still heavily value Tika's macro viewpoint, especially his views on Wall Street adoption in crypto. There's also a lot of whales that follow Tika. He was one of the original whale makers, being so early to the space. And his calls still do manage to move the market from time to time. Overall though, I would say that this newsletter is probably not worth it for most people. It's just too expensive to make sense for the average person. What might make more sense instead would be subscribing to an individual newsletter rather than getting the lifetime full package deal and trying to get that during some sort of promotional or discount period. Back in the day, I would have probably rated this one a 10 out of 10, but today I'd rate it just a 6 out of 10. All right, we just have 2 left. Next up is Legacy Lifetime Unlimited Membership, coming in hot at $20,000. Like most of these newsletters, like I mentioned, this is one that if you buy during a promotional period, you can actually get a lot cheaper. And this one actually comes with 30 different newsletters, including the entire Palm Beach Group newsletter set we just talked about, as well as Brownstone Research, KC Research, Rogue Economics, and Jeff Clark's Delta Report. It's again hard for me to fully evaluate this newsletter package because I haven't read all of the newsletters that there are because there's just so many of them. Although I would guess that most people that buy these massive packages don't end up using all the newsletters themselves. And that's really going to be my biggest argument against a lot of these big newsletter packages, is that most people won't ever use everything that they're buying. They feel really fun and exciting to buy, but in reality, you're going to only use a small portion of what you're actually paying for. Overall, my experience with this newsletter set is that they do know what they're talking about, and they take a lot of info that's just scattered all over the place and they organize it all for you. This newsletter set's also really good at giving you a decent education in investing, position sizing, risk management, etc. Being that a lot of these newsletters, me specifically, I'm looking at from a crypto perspective, I do feel like specifically with this one and a lot of them, they're never really on the bleeding edge of like what's going on in the crypto markets. They're not really on the bleeding edge of trends. They're more jumping on trends that are already popular among like the DeFi native crowd. So they usually end up not being positioned in the hyper early crowd, but they're usually well positioned ahead of mainstream investors. I personally feel like much cheaper products like Massari do a lot better job at identifying early trends and important information happening in the space. But again, you have to be able to discern like which information is valuable and which isn't, and then take that information and form some sort of investment strategy. And if you don't know how to do that, or you're not really good at that, or you have a track record of not being good at that and you don't want to learn, then, you know, maybe a newsletter set like this is something for you. That being said, if you're somewhat knowledgeable in the space, then this newsletter probably isn't going to be very useful for you. Overall, I'd rate this one a 7 out of 10. Last up is Stansberry Research's lifetime membership at a staggering $45,000. This one is my father-in-law's favorite, and it comes with a staggering 43 different newsletters. It is yet again another one that you can get much cheaper if you buy during a promotional period. Like I said, a lot of these different newsletters offer these promotional periods where, you know, you get it way cheaper than the retail price that they listed at. Some of these newsletters cover options, stocks, crypto, bonds, and even more ideas. From my experience, they have some really good macro content, and in general, it's just a basket of investment ideas and strategies for just about every area of the market. And I can only judge these newsletter sets off of the ones that I've actually read out of, you know, the 40 plus newsletters, which I haven't read every single one, but from the ones that I have read, I will say that I actually do like these newsletters better than all the other ones that I've tried. Would I ever spend $45,000 to buy all these? Probably not, unless I had a ridiculous amount of money to throw around. But I do think for the right person, you can definitely get your money's worth if you put these strategies to work. What I found across all of these newsletters is that they generally do typically work. Like the strategies that they give you and the research they give you on when to buy and sell typically does produce some sort of return on your investment. Not all of them, but across the board, a lot of them do end up working out. I do think though that most people would probably be wasting their money spending $45,000 to buy this complete investment package. Just because personally, I don't think most people would actually end up using all this research. It's really hard to keep up with like 5 newsletters, let alone 43 different newsletters. And one thing to note that's kind of jacked is a lot of these lifetime memberships actually have a recurring fee of like $500 that you have to pay every single year in order to keep your lifetime membership, which to me, I don't know, kind of defeats the purpose of the lifetime membership. Like I said earlier, they say you get everything that they have and you get it for a lifetime, but then they release something new and that doesn't count, and actually you have to pay a $500 yearly maintenance fee to keep this thing. Overall, just because it's so dang expensive, I would rate this one a 7 out of 10. So to answer the question, was it worth it for me to spend $10,000 on newsletters and my father-in-law to spend $90,000 on newsletters? This probably isn't the answer you'd expect, but I would actually say yes. I've ended up making more money than I've spent many times over, and so is my father-in-law. So in that sense, it's worth it. That being said, I think we would probably be both better off had we just bought individual newsletters and, you know, individual tools versus buying these big, massive packages. And my father-in-law says that it's been worth it from his viewpoint just for the education that he's gotten. And in his opinion, that's the biggest value by far. And he actually disagreed with me about the full packages. He said it's too hard to know which newsletters are going to work and be worth it, and what strategies he's going to be interested in and which ones aren't. And I asked him if he had to go buy all these all over again, would he? He said yes. If you're interested, I have a Patreon where I take all this research, all of these different newsletters, and everything that I'm learning from them, and I condense it into a research report that I put out every single month, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So if you're interested in that and you want to check it out, there's a link in the description below. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it. I'm on a journey to try to make $50 million, and I use all this research and everything I'm learning to try to make my best guesses and make my best plays to get to my $50 million goal. And my channel is like my digital journal documenting all the steps I'm taking to get me there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.